Hey, Patty. Dime. Good. I'm about to start the Zoom. Dime. Okay. Are you coming back to the office? Okay. Rafi's here. No, but Rafi just Ruben just went. Ruben went to lunch and Rafi just got back. Okay. Okay. The door like goes like right by the kitchen. I'll leave it ajar. I'll just leave it ajar for you right now. Sure. Bye. You might need to open the back door for me. I'm starting the Zoom now, just FYI. in shape for you guys. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just opening up the room. As usual, we're running on Miami time, so we're going to give a few minutes for people to get in. It's been, I don't know where you guys are, but it's been raining really hard over here, so it might cause a delay in some folks getting back to their desk. So I take the opportunity to welcome the mighty J.L. Martinez, the creative director, co-founder of Miami Media and Film Market, who might want to do a drive-by announcement, and we'll follow that up
Hello,
later.
hello.
And there he is. There is the formidable J.L. Martinez.
Hey guys, how are you? All right. I think we want to wait a couple minutes maybe?
Yeah, it's standard procedure that people roll in on metric time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can hang out for a few until we're ready.
Right, and whatever you say, I will repeat at the end, because I know there were some people coming in and out, all this kind of stuff. Some people prefer to wait for the recording, which is not the spirit of this thing, but what are you gonna do?
Okay, cool. So do you want me to give the spiel now or
Give
want
the
to wait?
spiel now.
All right, I'll give the spiel now. Well, thanks guys for joining this animation writing masterclass. I'm sure you're going to have a very good session with the great Joe Garcia. I'm just here to give you a brief update of what we're busy working on, which is our flagship MMFM conference, which we're organizing and is going to take place in just about 3 weeks from today. So we are definitely trying to get as many folks as possible to register and come, particularly since we are doing an animation summit as part of our industry panels, but we're also providing one-to-one meeting opportunities. So especially if you're in the animation space, whether or not you have a particular project to pitch, or you just want to meet some of the high-level folks that we've been talking to over the past year, about developing and actually finding work for the local animation industry, I definitely think that you should register and come. We have a special promotion right now just for you guys and folks that we've been working with in the past. So you can actually put MMFMer, and Joe Garcia can send the details later, and you can actually upgrade your pass for a limited time from the basic Palladium to our industry pass, which will give you more access and more projects that you can present, and also give you access to those one-to-one meetings, as well as submitting a short film for the film festival screenings. I said it right. At night in the evening. But space is filling fast, and as some of you know, we are a very boutique venue, so definitely want to make sure that you guys get in while there's still space and room available. So if you guys are interested, there's going to be some fantastic industry speakers, everything from some of the top showrunners in LA, like Juan Carlos Cotto. So if you're learning screenwriting and storytelling, you definitely want to also be a part of the Creative and Business Development Summit. We're going to be having a special 1-hour conversation with one of the top showrunners in LA who just got off of 911, the big ABC drama. He's also worked on shows like 24 and Nikita and Heroes. He's developing some new shows over at Amazon as well. So you definitely want to try to hear him speak, but also see if you can get in a room with JC. One of Joe Garcia's writing partners, Karen Hall, who is an award-winning writer from MASH to The Good Wife to The Glades more recently, will also be back at MMFM, teaching you a little more of what Joe's going to be talking about, is creating a really effective log line and synopsis, which is key to any developing writer to know how to create what I call the haiku of the movie business. So definitely want to get that under your belt. And just the general networking is phenomenal. You definitely meet some folks that can help further your career at MMFM, even if you just want to listen in on some panels and don't want to do the private pitch meetings. Definitely the networking events and the various formats we have for interaction are really unique and very engaging. So hope you guys can make it July 14th. So see you out there.
Thanks, JL. I'll make sure to put all that in the chat for everybody, as well as access emails and getting a hold of Abby, our assistant, for any troubleshooting, the promo code, all that kind of good stuff, because I know that that people will want to avail themselves of this, and I know that we had some communications issues before, so we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to pitch their projects. If you were to go to LA and talk to 6 people, you'd be paying $1,000. Here we're going to talk. You guys are going to be able to speak with 16 major, I mean seriously major heavyweight people that I'm dying to talk to. So those are going to be the folks that you're going to have access to. Major producers, major executives, people who have the ability to greenlight a project or to godfather a project on your behalf. And as JL noted, the networking is such an underestimated kind of aspect of this industry. One of our great friends, Barbara Hall, who just finished show running Madam Secretary, has a great line, which is you're either networking or not working. So, and you're going to meet somebody there, and nothing will happen, but 3 years down the line, a perfect golden opportunity will materialize, and you don't want to miss it. Don't be the person who quit before the miracle. If you are here or on your way here, because you know how these things run, you have ideas, you have concepts, you have talent, and being able to get all those elements of yours to fly in formation uh, is important. And then finding somebody else will be part of your squadron as you're flying in formation. You need a wingman. You need a spotter. You need a point person. All these people that form sort of your board of directors. This is what MMFM will do for you, as opposed to other places, not naming names, where it's a free for all. Pay your expensive ticket, come stay at the expensive hotel, and see if you can elbow your way to somebody. So um, this isn't that. This is a very familial aspect of people that we call lovingly MMFMers, which is where we get the promo code from. It's very much your tribe. We are your tribe. You're my tribe, and we all cheer each other's successes. We all lend a hand every chance we get. This is not about getting somebody down to uh, further my career. This is, if I help you, then you're going to be in a much better position to help me later. So Jill is putting in the chat the link and the promo code and all that exciting stuff. I'll go over that later. We're giving a couple more minutes before people come in, and then people are going to come in late, and they're going to ask me for the recording because that's how it happened last time. And last time we had some issues with Zoom. Zoom, for some reason, when it's raining, Zoom acts really weird down here. Don't know what to tell you with that, but we will make the PDF of this presentation available to you. JL is in charge of putting up the recordings on our YouTube channel. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel. Comment, like, and subscribe, as the kids say. And you can have all that kind of information. I'll put my email at the end. So if you have any additional questions, if you're anything like me, your questions are going to come right after this thing concludes. You're going to go, oh man, I wanted to ask about blah, blah, blah. Happy to address all those for you. I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. So we'll give it another minute, then we'll kick off with where we left off last time. So as if you also have any questions from last session, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll address them before the recess bell rings.
All right, guys. So that's what I have. I did drop some info in the chat. Obviously, I'm not a writer like you guys, so I had a couple typos there, but I'm sure you can figure it out. And hope to see you guys in person at the Biltmore in just a few weeks. Enjoy the session.
Thanks, Shale.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye. That was the mighty JL Martinez. One more minute, and then we're really going to kick it off. And whoever comes in late, comes in late. So if you have any questions from the last session, sort of, feel free to drop them in the chat. We will pick all that up when we need to, before we wrap up. So last session, by the way, I'm officially starting, just letting you guys know. Last session, we covered the importance of story structure. And story structure, to recap, is the very specific set of cubby holes that you need to build. And then creating a good story is figuring out how to fill those cubby holes, both in terms of shape and color and texture. If it's a square hole, that's that's something you can't violate. It's got to be square. Is it a tall square? Is it a short square? Is it going to be smooth? Is it going to be rough? All that is up to you. This is where your creativity comes in. Don't get mad that there are guardrails. The guardrails are to keep you where you need to be. So, because I know most of you are coming in from the animated world, animation, VFX, that kind of thing. We're going to go and show a couple different examples to illustrate how that story structure translates into, like we did last time, we did an animated feature, Finding Nemo. Now we're going to do an animated television episode, The Grinch. We're going to do a very VFX intensive, set of features, The Matrix and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's / Philosopher's Stone. And then for next session, we're going to wrap it up with an actual game a video game, and how that also uses story structure. It really doesn't, we'll cover this with greater detail after we wrap up with the examples, but it doesn't matter the shape of the screen that you're going to be using. It doesn't matter even if it's a printed page. Story is story is story. Um, it's a terrible analogy, but it's kind of like swimming. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a pool, it doesn't matter if it's the ocean, it doesn't matter if it's a jacuzzi, it doesn't matter if it's a bathtub. You know, swimming is swimming is swimming. The stroke remains the same. You know, where you aim, how long you go, all that stuff is up to you as a creator to do. And to summarize or to recap, as we said last time, even if you have no intention whatsoever of ever writing anything on your own, by the way, you should, um, it's important for you to realize how it is that the writer's mind works, because there are things that you may not pick up on if you're not sort of conversant with sort of writerese. So I'm going to share my screen, and I always have tremendous difficulty with this. Let's start with this one, share the screen, and it, this is it. Here we go. Okay, why is this paused? It's supposed to be paused. Okay, here we go. This is an initiative of the Miami Media and Film Market, uh, which itself is an initiative of the Latin Chamber of Commerce, United States. And as always, we could not do this without the tremendous help of our partners at Career Source South Florida, who've been sensational, the City of Miami District 1, Miami-Dade Public Library System, and our newest partners, the Miami-Dade County Cultural Affairs Office. So to go back to story structure, here's another example that we're going to go to show you how this works in TV, which is a different, this is again an analogy, but I've always told people that film and television are like cricket and baseball. The skill set is the same. You have to run, you have to throw, you have to catch, you have to hit, but the rules are different. Different enough that you need to pay attention to. Okay, so a great example of how we, develop a story for television is how The Grinch Stole Christmas, especially if you're coming, into this from the animated world, and obviously we see a lot more animated series coming up. So, how The Grinch Stole Christmas. The opening image. We discussed this last time. The beats are all going to be the same. How they manifest themselves are different. The opening image, you see the Grinch, he's alone, he's in a cave, and he's got a mean look on his face. That tells you he hates people, he's a hermit, he wants to be away from everyone, and he's not happy about anything. And the second beat is when we state the theme. And in this case, it's the narrator. And the narrator functions kind of as a character in this particular story. And he explains that the Grinch's heart was 2 sizes too small. When you hear the theme, once you get the hang of picking up on what the theme is, which always comes very early on, you'll get to sort of see it sort of as a through line throughout the entire story. You'll see how that plays out. And it's important when you state the theme that you don't yell the theme. The idea is for the audience to realize what the theme had been all along, rather than for you to say, by the way, the theme is generosity or family or whatever. And as soon as we see the Grinch, that he's a hermit, that he's mean, he lives in a cave, we then immediately get the contrast of the Who's down in Whoville, who are they're friendly and they're kind and they're cheerful, which is exactly what the Grinch is not. And by the way, he hates people who are kind and cheerful and friendly. So keep in mind, this is about the Grinch. It says it on the label of the Grinch Stole Christmas. And that opening sequence, which again is a musical, which gives you a different way of doing it, you get to see kind of like his problem. He's sort of the quote unquote hero. Doesn't seem like he's a hero, but he's the hero. It shows you kind of what he needs to set out to do. And when he finishes, sort of like beating himself about all the stuff that he's got to endure with the singing and the music and stuff, um, he has to find the motivation to do that. Keep in mind that this is not the first Christmas the Grinch has sort of had to withstand. So it's now finally come to a point where he's going to do something about it. It's taken him this long to say, okay, this is it. I'm done with this. And keep in mind that he's got a dog. His dog's name is Max, and he's apparently nice enough to his dog. So you know that there's a little tiny kernel of goodness in there somewhere. So he comes up with a plan to dress himself up as Santa Claus and steal Christmas, quote unquote, steal Christmas. Um, and now he's gonna go off and do that. And it doesn't matter that the plan is the wrong plan or the solution to the wrong thing. For our purposes, this is what gets a story in motion. The debate, in many cases, the debate can be no debate. That's also valid. Where he says, "Why should no? Of course I should do this." That's a perfectly valid quote unquote debate beat. It's really a beat, the title of a beat, not so much a carved in marble directive. But that sort of the usual debate part is underscored by his dog Max. And the dog, being a dog, even if it's a cartoon dog, expresses some misgivings that deep down the Grinch should be having. His heart is too small, so he can't really access those emotions. But fortunately for us, you get to see that the dog, Max, is kind of a very small representation of the Grinch's conscience that sort of withered with time. We break into Act Two where the preparations are ready to steal Christmas. And then we go into the B story. Here's another example of how these beats are not carved in marble. This is not a typical B story, and not all stories have a B story, especially in half-hour television where there is no time to come up with beat story. A lot of times, what will happen is, and a great example of this is if you watch an episode of Seinfeld, and the word for an episode of television, especially half-hour television, that has an A story and a B story and a C story and a D story is Seinfeld. And in Seinfeld, very often you have four characters, each having their own sort of thing to do, their own issue to solve, their own problem to deal with. And a good example of an episode that is not that. By the way, the word for that we use is plotty. It's very plotty. It has a lot of plot because Jerry has to do this thing and Kramer has to do this other thing, etc. Is the best one is called The Contest, and it's not just because of the salacious nature of the contest, but particularly because all four of the main characters are involved with the story, which is who can hold off the longest. So this is why B stories in television, and especially in half-hour television, are not mission critical. You can have them if it helps the larger arc of the series, but you don't have to have them. Translation, don't panic if it doesn't fit in your half-hour story. By the way, a half-hour television show, which is almost invariably broadcast, is you're looking at 22 minutes of screen time. So it's better to not shoehorn something in than to, have it just for the sake of having it. Now, that all said, in this case, what stands in for the B story, the case of the Grinch, is the relationship, and I use that advisedly, between the narrator and the Grinch. So the eighth beat, which is everybody's favorite beat, it should be your favorite beat, is the fun and games. And this is a textbook example of the Grinch. He's stealing all the artifacts of Christmas and he's got a just a look of evil delight on his face. But you get to see all the things he had planned. How he's using the magnet to take the stockings, how he's shoving the tree up the fireplace, how he's got a million bags to put all the toys in, etc. And it's a montage, so you can see all the fun and games. Another great montage, my favorite montage actually, is from the Albert Brooks film called Defending Your Life. And there's a great montage of all the things he did wrong on Earth, which is hilarious. I'm not going to spoil it, but go ahead and go to YouTube and look for it. It is hysterical, and it shows you everything that you needed to showcase in the fun and games media. It shows this is why you came to see this TV show or you went to the movies for. And I repeat myself from last session. When James Bond starts using all his gadgets, that's what you paid your money for. It's for the gadgets. Everything else is important from a story standpoint, but what you're really there to revel in is the fun and games. Now, the midpoint. In this case, it's a false defeat. There's sometimes a false victory, but more often than not, it's a false defeat. And in our case, is when Cindy Lou Who, I should have put her last name, perhaps I screwed that up, sorry. She comes in and she wanted, just here's the rattle of Santa Claus stealing everything in the house, and she busts him. And, because of what you already know about story structure, it's not going to be, a real defeat. She's asking why he's stealing the tree, and he's busted. So you see him lose his cool. He's sweating, his knees are knocking, he's biting his nails, until he sort of like comes up with the solution he's had all along. He tells Cindy Lou, hey, by the way, there's a light that doesn't work on one side. I'm going to take it back to the workshop, and it's all going to be fine. Gives her a glass of water, and off she goes to bed. By the way, because of the time constraint, you saw that the bad guys close in and the all is lost beat gets smushed into one. Again, you only have 22 minutes to tell this particular story. So it's okay to combine beats when you have a time constraint. Now we break into the third act, Act 3, which is when the Grinch leaves the antithesis world of Whoville with, look how giant the bags are on his sleigh. His poor dog was got all that stuff. And he makes his way to his mountain cave, Mount Crumpetable. I think Dr. Seuss just made up words just to make them rhyme, but that's neither here nor there. So on top of Mount Crumpet, with the sleigh teetering over that little sort of jagged peak, which is symbolic, metaphorical, etc., he waits for the Who's to be miserable. Keep in mind, he doesn't want to just steal Christmas to prevent it. He wants to inflict pain on the people who enjoy something that gives him such displeasure. So he's it's not just mean in taking the stuff. He's taking the stuff not so he can have it, but so that you will be sad that you don't have it. But then, the Who's gather anyway and start singing Welcome Christmas. And from his standpoint, because he doesn't get it yet, this is crucial. This is a completely inconceivable moment. Why are these people happy anyway? I took all their stuff. In this case, because he's a mean character who's going to transform, and we'll talk about transformation when we get to the storytelling portion of the session, is when you're a bad guy turning into a good guy, which is what this is, which is a little bit unorthodox. This is his dark night of the soul, when he realizes that what he was doing was wrong and what he thought was the case is not the case. And then he says to himself, maybe Christmas is more than just the toys and the trees and the food and all this kind of stuff. And he changes his mind. And you can see because his eyeballs or his pupils go from sort of demonic red to a clear blue. And this moves, we've adjusted the location of his beat to accommodate for the format of television, especially half-hour format. This is to underscore that there is flexibility. you should always try to put the beats in the order that you saw them last session, in the order you see again, especially in features. It's a little bit less flexible in features. And then you can start playing around with them. As you know, the rule is learn the rules before you break the rules. So you know what you're breaking and why. Just because you think it's a good idea is never a good idea. So keep in mind that there is flexibility for artistic expression here, and that's how that works. Um, and the final image is where you have proof that something has transformed, and there's a demonstration of synthesis. And by the way, when you guys are in a writer's room or you're working on a project and you're animating a particular character, you will never hear somebody say, well, the synthesis, it's one of those things that you have to know and have to be comfortable never using again in sort of direct professional conversation. But anyway, here we have a proof that there has been a transformation, that we have now taken the elements of the first act and the elements of the second act and come up with something brand new. And in this case, it's the Grinch no longer being an outcast. He's learned his lesson, he's earned a place among the Who's and a place of honor at that. Notice he's at the head table carving the roast beast. So, by the way, take a screenshot. Here's my email. Let me know if you have any other questions based on this. So, I'm going to, let's see what I can put here. All right, let me show you the Matrix, which is a very VFX intensive. Even if you're working in VFX, story structure matters or should matter to you. So let me go ahead and share that one. By the way, the teaser is we're going to do a video game next time, one of those Star Wars games, which is not my favorite game, but it's important to see how story structure works in this kind of endeavor as well. So we're going to do the Matrix as a great example because it's very VFXy, and a lot of VFX has to be at the service of the story structure. So you'll see. And by the way, one of the little tidbits that I always enjoy is when you're conversant with story structure, you will be able to watch any TV show, any movie, and turn to the person next to you and say, you know what? I bet you that blah 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 is going to happen next, and they will not see it coming. But you who have known all this will see it coming. So, opening image, it has to give your people, the people you're showing this to, your audience, a look and feel, and it has to be like that. You don't have time to spend 10 pages on an opening image. It has to tell people what they need to know literally in just one blink. So, in the Matrix, that's the blinking cursor. Back in the days when computers had a black screen and green text, but whatever. And it's a story about Neo, who's a hacker, and who finds out that his life is a computer simulation. And over the image, we hear the other two characters who are on the other end of the cursor, who've been liberated from the Matrix and are looking for like their leader. So again, the story structure requires that the theme be communicated by someone early on, and almost usually it's a dialogue spoken to the main character. It's important that the main character have somebody else tell him or her that. And it's very important for the main character to not process that, not get it. So Neo, who's a hacker, has one of his customers say, you need to unplug for a while. And this lets you know, oh, this is about really unplugging from this matrix that he's dealing with. Your setup in a feature is going to be 10 pages. In a half hour something on television, it's going to be not 10 pages, it's going to be 2.5 pages, 2.25 pages. Keep in mind a page is ballpark a minute. So in this setup is where you need to lock in your audience. If you don't do this now, they're going to turn off the program. They're going to just check out. You'll have lost them. So in the setup, you got to show the main character in their regular world, the world as they've known it so far. And you have to let everybody know very quickly this is the regular normal for that character. Then you hint at the adventure that's going to happen. Next, you have to establish all the characters that are going to factor into the story beats. And sometimes you'll see this in the next one. You have to hint at the other characters because you're not physically in that same setting, where you go from one physical location with one set of mundane characters to a second location with super fantastic characters. So you might just have to hint at it. We'll go over that in the next one. And this is where you give your audience context. And if you don't do this right, your audience is going to, at very best, be lost. And if you've ever seen sort of like somebody, I don't know, was that the guy with the thing? I thought it was that. What happened to the? If you don't do your setup right, you're going to get the audience doing a lot of that for the rest of the movie or the show. So, in the Matrix, that begins with an action sequence that shows how people in Neo's world were almost like they're from another planet, basically. They defy the laws of physics, and we also learned that Neo kind of senses what's going on beyond him, but can't quite get it. Now, when you guys get the PDF of this YouTube link will be live on it. You'll be able to see what I mean in a video context instead of just a picture. Okay, for a number of very uninteresting reasons, I can't show you that right now, but you'll have it and you'll see it yourself. Or you can Google it later on. The catalyst, which a lot of people more formally call the inciting incident, is the event that changes the status quo of the lead character, who's still not ready to go from his regular, he's not ready to leave his comfort zone or her comfort zone and go into this grand adventure. Sometimes in the people who refer to story structure under the title The Hero's Journey, it might be called they call it the inciting incident, and after that, this guy's going to refuse the cult, whatever. In our cases, Neo meets Trinity at a nightclub, and she tells him he's in danger. And the way that this happens, again, you'll see this when you get the PDF, you're able to click on it. This gets the viewers hooked, and they want to see what happens next. By the way, there is no more singularly powerful element in a story than being able to give the reader or the viewer a very strong sense of what happens next. I need to know what happens next. What happens next? This is why a lot of people binge television shows on streaming, because you need to know what happens next. You can't wait, if you don't have to wait, to know what happens next. That sense of story suspense is crucial. So there's a debate. Neo, or whoever the character is, has doubts about going on this thing. I don't know. I'm comfortable where I am. This looks dangerous. I'm not so sure. But you know what happens? Something prompts the character to answer that debate in favor of, okay, I'll go to the adventure anyway. So, when the suits with the sunglasses, the agents, go after Neo, and he doesn't escape the building, that shows you how he's debating that particular issue. But because this is not going to be a 10-minute movie, you have to break into Act 2. He has to overcome, his misgivings and set out on the journey. This is officially the key that turns over the engine of the story. This sets the plot in motion. And everything else that happens, all the obstacles, all the twists and turns, are all the result of this choice. If this character doesn't make this choice, none of the other things happen after that. And obviously in The Matrix, most famously is when he takes the red pill. So the point that like some people use the term red pilled to describe when somebody like realizes something they had never realized before and cannot act as he did before. Anyway, um, as we discussed previously in last session in the last example, um, the A story is what leads us from Act One to Act Two. But because you got to give people a breather, especially in a film, which is you're looking at a minimum of 90 minutes, and the way some of these guys are going, like 3 hours, you got to give people a break. People need to catch their breath. And in this case, it's the romance between Neo and Trinity. And that kind of grows in parallel to the rest of the story, but it's its own separate track. It's parallel, but not the same track. And this gives Neo the strength to realize that, hey, maybe he is the hero. And that leads us to the fun and games, which is what people came for. If you know all those very famous clips of people where the camera spins around as the character is moving in slow motion, etc. Um, this is where the lead character wields their new powers, their new skills. They change bomb, the new gadgets, does really cool stuff with all this, which is why you came to see this. And in the Matrix is where he learns how to, all kinds of fun stuff, and he uses these martial arts skills, and he makes these impossible jumps, and it's really visually very arresting. It's really impressive to watch. The midpoint. At some point, the lead character is going to get what they want, or they're not. But either way, there's consequences. It can't be they got what they want and hooray, movie's over, or they didn't get what they want. Oh well, next episode. Neo has taken the pill because he also wants to see if he's sort of the hero for humanity. Um, and he visits the Oracle to see what's going on with that. And she gives him, she looks at him up and down and says, you're not really the hero. And that leads to the bad guys closing in. Because when the character gets or doesn't get what he or she wanted or didn't want, there's going to be consequences. That leads to something. By the way, it's important for you to realize that every beat has to lead to another beat. They're not so much standalones. The purpose of having beat number 9 look like however it looks is for it to go to beat number 10. Think of it as a staircase. The purpose of the first step is one and one purpose only, to get you to the second step, etc. So the sort of the antagonistic forces are going to sort of tighten their grip on the lead character and keep that lead character off balance. They don't have to be antagonists. It just has to be antagonism. Sometimes it's internal. We'll see it a little bit. Talk about it in the next sample that we got going. But it could be something like there's dissent within the team where one person says, you know what, I'm sick of this. I'm out of here. And in the Matrix, where the bad guys close in, is where Morpheus is betrayed and the agents capture Morpheus. And the bad guys close in to such a point that you get to the all is lost beat, which is a really hard beat to do. And this is more often than not a clear example is when you have the mentor of the lead character die. We're going to talk about Harry Potter shortly, and we see that beat in the Deathly Hallows with Dumbledore. You don't really see that beat in the other Harry Potters, but Harry Potter, which is a contained film franchise, with not like James Bond that is going to go on, forever and ever, amen. This is something different. The Harry Potter is based on 7 books. They try to stretch it to 8 movies, but that's what that is. Anyway, so you have usually it's the mentor being lost and the lead character having to kind of go by himself or herself. So this is in the Matrix is where the agent sort of interrogates Morpheus to try to give up a location of the safe haven for the humans. And the all is lost leads inevitably to the dark night of the soul. This is your character, your lead character has, or a character, but usually the lead character, has reached rock bottom. That character has lost all hope. And in the Matrix is when they realize they got to pull the plug on Morpheus. This is it. You have hit rock bottom, and things are as dire as it could possibly be for that character. Um, it's kind of like when you're looking at Pinocchio, where Pinocchio's upside down in the water, and Geppetto thinks that Pinocchio's dead. All that kind of stuff. You have really, really, really just, there is no lower point than this for that character. But that leads us into Act 3. And you have your lead character sort of kind of like, stumbling in the dark, kind of going blind. And at some point, he's going to find something, he's going to remember something, something will be triggered. Uh, Something will trigger him, for example, in The Grinch is when he hears the Who's in Whoville singing Welcome Christmas. This makes it's an aha moment for the lead character. And in the Matrix is where Neo remembers something the Oracle told him, which gives him the confidence to save Morpheus against impossible odds. By the way, it really should be impossible odds. Slightly unlikely is not dramatically very interesting. Trinity goes with him, and we jump into Act 3. Act 3 is kind of like the finale is the summary of Act 3. We covered that before in the previous session. By the way, that one's already up on our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search Miami Media Film Market. You'll see our YouTube channel. Go to the latest video, and you'll see the first session that we did. Anyway, the finale of the finale beat is Act 3's summary. Now you know that the good guys have to go fight the bad guy, and the good guys have the tools. They've made some discoveries, maybe self-discoveries. They sort of mix what they've learned in Act 2 with the values they always held. In the case of the Grinch we discussed before, very deep down inside, he had a little, tiny, tiny little, nugget of goodness that he had with him. And now he gets to do the important thing, the sort of the big splashy thing. So in the Matrix, Neo and the rest put their training to the test. They take on the agents, they liberate Morpheus, and eventually Neo has to face Agent Smith by himself. As we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, in Harry Potter, in every movie, Harry Potter has to face Voldemort by himself. So he uses something important. He unplugs from the Oracle's logic, follows his instinct, again, use the Force loop. Where you forget kind of like the old ways of doing things, you embrace the new way that you learned in Act 2, and in the Matrix, it gives him just tremendous power, and he completely vaporizes Agent Smith. And then you have your final image. The final image is a bookend to the opening image. It should sort of summarize the entire journey, and it's the last thing that the audience sees. And it sort of underlines the theme of the story. It represents what happened, what changes, etc. And in the Matrix, you hear the Neo's voiceover that he's going to be taking on the task of liberating those stuck in the Matrix, and he gets to fly, and he's got superpowers, which he's going to put to really good use. There's my email again, so be sure to get a hold of us for anything you need to. And I'm going to share with you the last one before we go to by the way, the next session, we're going to talk about more storytelling, how to create compelling characters. And because MMFM, the conference, is coming up, we're going to discuss how to pitch your project. We have, as JL mentioned earlier, we have 16 very literally world-class producers and executives who want to hear, and specifically for animation, we have 5 different world-class executives and producers who want to hear specific animation and game pitches, including probably the single most important human being in animation, a guy named Julian Scott from Film London, who is their uh, their consultant on that. Um, and that's going to be really, really huge. So let's see. Um, here we go. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's slash Sorcerer's Stone. These last two examples are both good on their own and also good because it shows you how important VFX can be in telling a story that could otherwise not be told. You have Harry Potter, which, if there's no VFX, could only have been told in an animated way, which is what Disney wanted to do when they gave J.K. Rowling a cubic acre of money uh, as an offer, and she said no. Partially because she didn't want to work with Disney because Disney was not going to do things the way she would have preferred to have them done. That's neither here nor there. So, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's slash Sorcerer's Stone. I apologize to anybody from the UK or Canada or the Commonwealth. We're going to call it Sorcerer's Stone from here on out. Although it really should be called Philosopher's Stone, but we digress. And I'm going to go kind of quick because our hour is almost up. If it's okay, I might run a little bit over, but I totally understand if you guys got to sort of take off. Opening image, and this is, you get to see right away the first frames. Here's a guy, he looks like a wizard, he's dressed like a wizard, it's, he's not wearing a baseball cap and jeans, doing wizardy things. Not just extinguishing lights, but see how the lights are extinguished. They fly from the light bulb to that weird kind of like reverse lighter he's got with him. You have a cat down here that turns into an old lady, and that lets you know that you're going to see a world that is muggle, quote unquote, versus magical. And then the theme is stated. The theme, again, is communicated in dialogue to the main character who doesn't quite get it yet. So, Harry's parents have been murdered by the most evil wizard in history. So, who or what is family to Harry? That's really the theme of most of the films, particularly the first one. How is this kid going to wind up with family because of his very difficult situation? And the setup, we showed like the horrible status quo that he has. You can see in the top image, he's wearing his cousin Dudley's clothes, and Dudley is taller and heavier. So, everything's hanging off of him. His aunt and uncle won't even buy him new clothes. It's all hand-me-downs as far as I can see. But when magical things start to happen, that gets our attention. We know there's going to be some magicalness. Even if you're not familiar with the books, you knew by the image of the wizard that some magicalness was going to be happening. And it's these letters coming in, through the fireplace, through the mail slot, etc. What do these letters say? This is what his aunt and uncle did not want him to see. And this establishes, I don't have the image for this on here, but there's a scene when he's in his little cupboard under the stairs where you see in little miniature forms a lot of the characters that are going to be coming to play later in the story, because you can't really set him up in sort of a big splashy way when he's living, in a little cupboard under the stairs with his aunt and uncle in a little suburban town in the middle of nowhere, England. But it establishes the importance of his blood family at this point. The catalyst, again, the inciting incident, this is where the status quo changes for a character who's not ready to go. He's in his comfort zone and doesn't want to leave. And Harry learns that the letters are invitations to attend Hogwarts. And if you can, in your head, you're hearing Hagrid say, he's a wizard. You're a wizard, Harry. And this is way too much for a little brain, a 10-year-old brain to comprehend. And because of that, he's got doubts. He's got doubts about going on this adventure. How is he going to go on this adventure? Will his aunt and uncle be able to stop it? What is a magic school? Why is he so famous, and how is he going to get there? All these are legitimate debate issues for a given character, and in his case, he's got them all. So we break into Act Two, where he says, "All right, fine, let's go." And again, this is what kicks off the plot. This is your here we go moment. And as always, every other beat in the story from here on out is a result of Harry saying, "Yes, let's go to Hogwarts." Because if he doesn't say that, then there is nothing else that we see in the film that would have happened. And he's going to Hogwarts. And on his way to Hogwarts, we get into the B story. And obviously, the A story is what happens when Act One sort of merges with Act Two. But the B story, as we discussed, sort of the cheat. If you're when in doubt and you need a B story, it's a love story. And the Sorcerer's Stone is the love story introduced between Ron and Hermione, which, because it's a finite film franchise, it's got its own way of proceeding. And you can see, by the way, that she's dressed up in the uniform already, and he's sort of still wearing his like regular everyday street clothes. So you know there's going to be a contrast between these two. And as a rule, two characters that get along great from the beginning are never going to be paired off romantically. Sometimes, but almost always not. And then we go into the fun and games part, which is the stretch where your character has to show off the new toys and new skills and new powers and show them off in a cool and fun way. When you saw Harry Potter, and keep in mind that the effects of 24 years ago, coming up on 25 years ago, are pretty primitive by today's standards. Um, but it was amazing. You saw Quidditch and the flying, and it was edited in such a way that even the primitive nature of those VFX things was minimized. I really got a haul because we're running a long time. Um, so now we get to the midpoint, which is where Harry Potter would get what he wants or doesn't get what he wants. But regardless of what he gets, what he wants, there are consequences. Harry learns about Voldemort, what really happened to his parents. He learns about the Sorcerer's Stone and how Voldemort needs it to return. We're not really sure what return means at this point, but it's bad. And more importantly, Harry realizes his life is in danger because choosing to go ahead with whatever, knowing your life's in danger, is a lot braver than going ahead and not knowing that anything bad's theoretically going to happen or could happen. And now the bad guys start closing in. Harry and his friends, Ron and Hermione, investigate the Sorcerer's Stone. They figure out what it is, who does what, how does it work, all this kind of stuff. And that's when things start getting weird for Harry. And more importantly, his star starts to hurt. A troll attacks the school, and Harry feels lonely and scared. He's the only kid who's had his parents murdered, the only kid who's the boy who lived. There's a lot of weight on his very young shoulders. And we get to an all is lost moment, which is when the character, the lead character, endures an inevitable. By the way, the loss is inevitable. All is lost means both all and loss. It's an inevitable loss. Your character has to have that loss. Otherwise, you have flown off the rails. And that's when Ron and Hermione and Harry discovered that, Snape's going to steal the stone, and he's going to steal it that night. And they try to get somebody to pay attention to them, and nobody does. You can't find Dumbledore, and they give up, dejected. And this is kind of like the low point of the character. Remember, he has to have lost all hope. That's when Harry meets his dead parents in the magical mirror of Erised, which is backwards desire. And what you have to realize is Harry at this point is like, does he miss him so much he wants to join them? Meaning, does he want to be dead himself so that he can be on the other side of the mirror with his dead parents? That's when you look at it through the lens of story structure and story, it's a very heavy message, to be putting into theoretically a young adult's book and in the mind of a child, an 11-year-old boy. And now we break into Act Three, which is when the character, he stumbles around in the dark, he's going blind, doesn't know what he's doing. He finds or realizes or gets or remembers something useful. Because of what they've been able to piece together, they quote unquote storm the castle. Yes, it's a pun. They're in the castle anyway, and they get past all the traps and challenges to save the stone. And you get to the finale, which is again is the summary of Act Three. So it's time for Harry to take on the bad guys. And if you remember this movie, Harry is by himself. Um, Hermione stayed behind. Harry stayed behind. I mean, Ron stayed behind, and it's just Harry. And when Harry goes there, he sees that it's not Snape who's the bad guy. It's Quirrell, who just was kind of an ineffective, stuttering little mousy professor. No, he's a bad guy too, and a bad guy. And with Voldemort, Quirrell asks Harry, "Hey, come with us, give us a stone, and we'll be great together." But Harry's not buying it, and he fights Voldemort and saves the stone. The final image, again, is the bookend that recaps his journey. It's the last thing you see as an audience. It underlines the theme and shows what happened and what changed. And Harry is now safe with his friends. He's beat Voldemort. He finally feels affection and respect and friendship, which is the complete opposite of the opening of him being stuck with his family, his aunt and uncle and his cousin, who, for all intents and purposes, treat him worse than Cinderella. And this is to nail home that point. You see um, Harry say his last lines are, "I'm not going home, not really," meaning the people that are quote unquote home, that's not home to me. Home is Hogwarts. Home is my friends. Home is where all these people love and care for me, and so forth and so on. So we got it in under the wire. Um, this is this has been great. Let me stop sharing real quick. If you have any questions, we have a couple of minutes. Um, okay, Leela, link to the YouTube. Let me see if I can find it and get it to you. This little sneak preview we're going to do next week. Let's see, YouTube. Don't mark it. Let me get you that link right now. Okay, let's say share, copy. I'm putting the here's the link to the previous presentation. Next week, I'll put this week's presentation up there too. Feel free to email me if you want the PDF. Um, let's see, Jonathan, what and who do you look for when networking? There's two layers of answer to that. Number one is anyone and everyone. I say that there's another part of that answer. Don't get excited because you don't know who is going to be part of your crew. You might meet somebody who's a director. You might meet somebody who is an aspiring director, an aspiring writer. And that's going to be somebody that, when they rise to a certain point in the industry, will think of you. That's number one. Number two is you need to network with people who are in a position to A, green light your idea, or B, know who can green light your idea and get you to them. Okay? That's very important. And sometimes it's just somebody who gives you advice as to what to do. They may not have a direct bearing on your career track, but they have wisdom to impart. For example, at MMFM, as JL mentioned in the opening, we're going to have a legendary showrunner, Karen Hall, showrunner, writer, producer. Just her list of credits is insanely long. Multi Emmy nominee, wrote from Eight is Enough in the '70s all the way to Madam Secretary. The Good Wife, the Glades, just until just a few years ago, has written novels. One of those novels is now being developed to be a series. The other one will probably be developed to be a series as well. She's seen it all. And even if you are in the gaming space, listening to the advice of somebody who's been at this for 45 years uh, is very much well worth your time. There, that I cannot overemphasize how important that is. And also, you're going to meet somebody, and they're going to be have a friendly exchange, and swap cards, etc. That person may not be useful to you tomorrow, but may be extremely useful to you 5 years from now. Or in other words, do future you a colossal favor. Do future you a tremendous favor by building your crew. Even the people who are much further along in the industry than you are. Another guy is JC Cotto. He's the showrunner, just got off 911 on ABC. He's already sold the thing to Amazon. He's working on selling something else. He's somebody that at some point could make a call on your behalf. It's, again, to quote Barbara Hall, you're either networking or not working. And I had this discussion with a very good friend of mine, a very accomplished writer, um, and I told her, it's like, you cannot just assume that just honing your skill, your craft as a writer, an animator, you know, whatever, director, etc., cinematographer, whatever, honing the technical aspects of your craft, that's not enough. You staying at home and working on your whatever will not get you very far. It's important for you to realize that other people, in order for you to move along in your career and have a career rather than a series of gigs, you need to have people for you to champion and people to champion you. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, nice guys finish last. The people who say nice guys finish last don't know where the finish line is. Because if you're a jerk, it'll catch up with you. It may not catch up with you in this movie or that show, but it will catch up with you when people say, oh, so and so, life's too short to work with so and so. Okay. So, Jonathan, I hope that answered your question. If you have any other questions, you can put them in now for the next couple of minutes. Okay, let's see, Julian. Okay, my suggestion is it's not a bad suggestion if you have the material to sort of seamlessly expand it. So it's okay to take a box with three things and break it up into three boxes with three things. But you have to have the other things to fill up those boxes. Uh, by the way, if you don't have them right away, do not panic. That's a bit of general advice. Don't panic. Things will come to you. Things will come to you when your subconscious is working and doing the heavy lifting. It's important for you to let your subconscious do the work. Your subconscious is a much more uh, strong muscle than you give it credit for. So, in Julian's case, animated film, short film with 3 act structure, splitting it into 3 episodes, one for each act. In concept, that's a great idea. It's just making sure that you have the resources, the creative resources, to fill in those particular aspects of your new expanded story. And I'll give you a very simple example. One of the films that we showcased at MMFM was a short film showcased at MMFM, I want to say 3 years ago, right before the pandemic. 5 years ago, but whatever, before the pandemic. It was a short. And it was so well received that the producer and director decided to sort of take that and accordion it, go from this and just make it a full blown feature. But in order for that to happen, and it did happen and it went well, you have to have enough, wrong word, don't get excited, enough filler, enough stuff to fill in those gaps. So my suggestion is sit down and work on, try to put one of those acts and try to stretch it to fit the 15 beat sheet. And it will not be, you will probably not do it the first day. but don't panic. You might have the first beat, the ninth beat, the seventh beat, the 14th beat, you might have all those elements in place for each act that is now turning into an episode, but it'll come to you. This is, people don't realize that being a creative is work. Just because a lot of the work is you going, but if the guy with the thing goes and does, but the lady, she comes in, a lot of that work is that. And people assume that because you're not tapping away at a keyboard or, picking garbage off the expressway, that it's not work. It's tremendous work. That's why there's so very few people who do it, and even fewer people who do it well, and even fewer people who do it well for an entire career. So, Julian, I realize that was a very long answer to your question, but I suggest that you take the beat sheet, and if you remember from last session, we had sort of a graph of the different spots for different beats and so forth. Take one act that is now going to become an episode and try to fill in those elements and see what you're lacking, and then just sort of move on, do the same thing with the second one. It'll come to you. So talk to people that you trust about this project, talk to people about this thing that you're doing, and you will discover in conversation that a lot of ideas pop into your mind, and it'll be fine. It just won't be fine like tomorrow. Okay, now we're really running on time. If there's one more question, I'll take it right now. Otherwise, just shoot me an email, and I'll. Okay, let's see. Leela, if you wanted to go into this, what could you start? Well, by the easiest way to do this is you can take, and we'll cover this in the second session, but you can take elements of your everyday life, and you will not believe how an element from your everyday life can turn into a video game that's a combat video game, or a science fiction show, or a Western, or one of those kind of like, costume dramas in 1700s England. You'll be shocked. My suggestion to you is start writing down little glimmer ideas that you have. Glimmer ideas are like tiny little seeds. If you write them down, that's equivalent to planting them in the dirt. And you write it down and set it aside for now. Think of another one. And after a while, go look at the first one. And then, more importantly, come to the next session where we discuss exactly this. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but now you know. So, you guys have my email, communications, plural, at camacol, CANACOL.org. Feel free to ask me any questions. You should be getting the link to the next session. And if we need to, we'll make it a fourth session. I'm here to help you guys. I'm not here just to tick off boxes and fill slots. So you guys have been great. Love the questions. Would love to see you guys at MMFM. Would love to introduce you to a lot of my major producer I mean, by the way, these are people that I'm pitching to. So I'm not telling you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. I'm telling you to do something that I'm exactly going to do myself. I'm going to talk to Heron Hall. I'm going to talk to JC Cotto. I'm going to talk to Joe Menendez and Adrian Wooten, Helena, and Gustavo from Spain, and all that. I'm talking to all those guys. And next session, we will discuss what your pitch package needs to be, so you guys are in great shape to get that story going. And if you got the beat sheet down, that is 90% of the text of your deck. Anyway, you guys have been sensational. Really loved it. If you had half as much fun as I did, you had a tremendous time. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And until then, have a fantastic day. Bye.